What is the most horrifying thing you have come across at someone? I had some good friends who lived in the bad part of town. Their apartment was fully infested with roaches, but they had forged a sort of Joe's apartment relationship with them. They loved to paint miniatures, and when a roach got too close, they'd go lap and smack them with a paintbrush. So they had all these Braveheart roaches running around with bodies half colored and bright paint. Anyway, they were playing this long drawn-out game one day. I don't remember what it was, but think. The risk with one of my friends who is just this endless hard luck case. Great guy, great attitude, but life finds him and shits on him whenever it can. After hours of play, he wins and exultantly jumps up and cheers. The only problem is that he leaps out of his chair like Super Mario, fist bumps a styrofoam ceiling tile, dislodging in and causing a rain of multicolored roaches to come cascading onto him. I hear he just stood there and screamed for a while in college. I visited another friend's apartment. It was summer in Maine, wet summer with much rain. The basement was warm and dark. I had to go downstairs to find a hammer or something, and when I clicked on the light, the entire rug, a small area rug at the bottom of the stairs, which apparently collected moisture / runoff from the basement stairs / wall. Seeping water was completely covered with mushrooms / fungus at least 5 inches high. Therefore, if I stepped on the rug, my feet would have sunk about 5 inches into mushrooms. What was the creepiest thing about it was that the mushrooms would lean towards you when you got close and would shoot spores into the air when the warm air brushed by them. So it was as if they were watching you / they could sense your clothes and trying to spore you if you disturbed the air enough. I had never seen mushrooms react to warmth for something close, let alone tries to fire spores into the air to get you. I was equally fascinated / terrified that I might get spores all through my lungs or whatnot, so I bolted. I was at this guy's house. He was pretty weird to begin with, but we had been friends for so long I didn't seem to notice anymore until this one day I'm in his room watching TV with him. His walls are covered in pictures of old movie stars from the 20s, 40s. I was sitting on his floor when I felt something scratching my leg a bit. I looked down and it's a toenail clipping, whatever. I think he probably forgot to throw it away. No, once I saw the first toenail clipping, I couldn't stop seeing them. Literally, there were hundreds of toenail clippings all over the floor. He saw me looking at the floor, somewhat horrified. He chuckled and called them his friends. When I was a teenager, I had a hard time finding anyone who I could play Dungeons and Dragons with. I eventually discovered that there was a gaming club at a library over on the city part of town, so I rode my bike over every Saturday morning and joined in whatever was being played. Eventually, I met some guys in their late 20s who wanted to start up a D&D game. It turned out that they were basically a bunch of welfare bums, but I didn't care because I was getting my game on. Finally, I went over to their nasty houses and played D&D with them. Fortunately, the DM had a job and a family, and we usually played in his finished basement, but sometimes we would play at the other houses. One of the players was also in the Amiga club, and he always had new games that I didn't have, so I would go over to his place with blank floppies and come back with a bunch of days pirated stuff. But his place was the worst basement bachelor unit in a CD building. It smelled like mold everywhere but his room, which smelled of dirty laundry and used tissues. He had a massive pre-internet porn collection, and I would usually leave through them while I was waiting for the disc to copy. It was kind of disgusting, but hey, when you're a pre-internet teenager, getting access to unlimited porn will make you put up with a lot. So one day I was there with my best of friend who I had gotten into the endgame a few weeks earlier. He and I were sitting on this dude's bed when he gets up to go to the washroom down the hall. I will never know what possessed my buddy to do it, but he reached over and pulled open the guy's dresser drawer. It was full of clipped out magazine pictures. It took us a few seconds, but we realized that they were all clippings from the Sears catalog cut from the children's underwear section. Thousands of pictures of kids, boys and girls in crisp white cotton. We closed the drawer and never spoke of it again. This was not my experience, but my aunt's. It was back in the 50s when my aunt was a teenager. She was hired by a couple to babysit. She'd never babysat for this couple before, but she was impressed because they were fairly wealthy and lived in a big house. The two small children, around 5 and 6 years old, were well dressed and well behaved. My aunt spent the day with them, fed them, played with them, etc. That evening she got them ready for bed. The parents were due back later that night. My aunt heard some sounds coming from an upstairs closet. The children were in bed asleep. She opened the closet and found a crib, and in the crib was a baby. Both the crib and the baby was filthy. I think my aunt woke up the children and asked them about the baby, but their answers were vague. I don't recall my aunt having any luck getting information about the baby from the two older children. My aunt cleaned the baby up. She washed the bed, and I remember her telling me that the baby didn't really make much sound other than the little grunts that had drawn her attention to it's in the closet. She probably tried to feed the baby, but I don't remember that part of the story. According to my aunt, the parents came home, paid her, thanked she took the baby, and the dad drove her home. She never babysat for them again, and she has no idea what happened to the baby. I remember when she told me the story, she said that as an adult she realized that she should have called the police. She was really upset that she hadn't thought as a naive teenager to do something to help what was obviously an abused child. One of my mom's friends has a house that isn't horrible as some things mentioned, but it's pretty awful. They have a little dog who they have never given any training, so the dog pees and shits everywhere. I remember when they first moved in, there was a white carpet. It's nowhere near white anymore. The house smells like trash and poop because they use giant trash cans, so they have to take the trash out less and then stack the bags in the corner of the kitchen, like 5 or 6 bags at a time. Stains all over the rug from the dog, and they got a crack in the foundation, so when it rained, mud came up into the carpet upstairs. It was worse. The kids had pretty much run off the upstairs. Nothing was ever cleaned. There was a dog poop dried all over the floor, some smeared across it. The cats peed on everything too. They had a landing area where there was a pool table and some games. Even the pool table smelled like pee. The daughter's room had clothes and empty soda cans everywhere, movies on the floor, necklaces hanging from things. Basically, she never put away anything. I found a half-eaten pizza under her bed once that was growing something. Her bathroom had dirty towels everywhere and makeup smeared across the walls, and the tub hadn't been cleaned in ages. But the boy's room, oh god, he kept his door closed all the time because just opening the door made you feel like you were going to die. So many towels and clothes you couldn't see the floor, chips bags and pizza boxes everywhere. The boy is 15 now, but he is essentially a child. He couldn't wipe his own ass. No joking here, absolutely serious. Until he was 9, he still isn't good at it by the smell in his room and the fact that there are stains all over boxers and towels in his bed. Not me, but a friend of mine. He was in an acquaintance's house to pick up something for work and stayed a bit to shoot that. They go down to the basement, which I guess is like a games room, but in the corner is this huge shrine in honor of this girl that they both knew. It was this altar covered in pictures of dolls with her face, hair. Even the dude was kind of embarrassed about it, but in the way that you'd be a little embarrassed if you forgot to put away the loop where you just laugh it off. He explained it to my friend who left. Everyone at work found out about it, including the girl, but from what he told me, the guy never really understood just how up it was. They're married now. No, not really. My uncle was a hoarder, but instead of writing food, he collected lots of antiques and just bought stuff at the dollar store or Smart and left it around his house. When he died, we had to clean out all this stuff. We found Polaroids of stuff, mostly his beloved cats. One featured a little shrine with candles and flowers around a wood casket with his beloved cat Scooter, who lived to be 21 years old. So when we found a similar box in the barn, I told my dad not to open it. An acquaintance of mine and his wife had moved into a newly built townhouse rented with 2 large dogs, labs. They'd been living there for a few months, and I went in to sell him some computer stuff. There was dog and fur everywhere, lots of dried full-sized piles, some stamped down and stained into the living room carpet, which I don't think they used at all. They were both computers junkies, so they spent all their time in their computer room upstairs. Going up the stairs, enough shed fur to make at least 3 or 4 more dogs. Noticed some upstairs on the landing, but their computer room was mostly clean. They didn't have much in the house as far as furniture or anything at all. Really, it's not like they were hoarders, just lazy and nasty. This is hard for me because I've been blessed to see many disturbing things like this in my lifetime. I will share the one situation that sticks out in my mind the most. I worked for moving company for a few years, and I have been in maybe more than 1,000 people's homes. You can't even imagine the things I have. 7 human beings never cease to amaze me. So we have a pretty normal day in the moving business, and already finished the first move of the day. Had some lunch on the subway before we headed to the next job, which looked like a cakewalk. 3 to 4 hours of moving an apartment. We arrived at our destination, unpack our gear, and head on up to the top floor of a pretty gross old apartment building, the kind of place that has been around for probably 50 years or so with minimal maintenance, so it had an odd stink to it, but nothing completely out of the ordinary. It was on the 3rd floor with no elevators, which was no big deal with a number of things that needed to be moved. So we walk up the last flight of stairs and something just smells odd. The already stale, musky apartment Building the scent took a strange turn with a smell of almost ammonia added to the mix. No big deal, right? We walk up to the apartment and a man greets us and tells us that it's his sister's place and she was in the hospital for 3 months but has been out for a few weeks. We are like, whatever, let's move this stuff. We open the door and I am the first to walk, and although I hit the doorway and I could not move any further, my senses were flooded with the most horrifying the smell I have encountered in my life, so thick that I literally could not move any further. I look around to see what's causing it, and the whole apartment is littered with garbage and mass amounts of dog feces and urine. For some reason there were newspapers all over, not for the dogs have just strewn about the place with pieces of and piss stains stuck to them. I look to the windows, none are open, and one has a small window, a unit circulating this stench. I have a really bad gag reflex, so instantly it starts. I begin wrenching and stepping back into the hallway. A small amount of my sub from lunch is being pushed up into my throat and my eyes start watering. It turns out this lady was not at the apartment for 3 months and her dogs had just been living there with no supervision, except maybe getting fed once in a while. Someone had to have fed them, right? Where would all the come from? 3 Dachshunds were just loose in there for months and pissing on everything. To top it off, this lady was still living there for this stench hole, just sitting in air-conditioned circulatification. I will add it was a small 1-bedroom place. Also, she was a big lady and it was so bad you could smell it on her within a 10-foot radius, or if you were walking 20-35 feet behind her, leaving a stench trail. It was so bad you almost expected to see something like gasoline fumes in the air on a hot day. So I look at my partner with a look like, no way are we doing this job right. Luckily the man had no gag reflex. He was known for it about the place actually, so he gives me this look like a crazed madman and just tells us to put our gloves on. He starts hurling furniture from the apartment into the hallway as fast as possible, and we would run into the truck also as fast as possible. Luckily we only moved a few essential items. They wanted to move the whole place, but that wasn't happening in the moving business. You never know what you're going to find. Open a drawer because you have to lift a dresser only to find strange looking porn or dildos owned by people you really didn't think would have a dildo collection. Who the hell doesn't put this stuff away when movers come? Another team of guys actually found a dead cat under an elderly woman's bed one time. Upon lifting the box spring, I wish I was there so I could share their details of that one. Back in 1990 when I was 10 or 11, I was at a kid's slumber party about 2 years earlier. A serial killer had been caught and sent to prison in our area, and this kid's parents moved in from out of town into his old house. I'm not sure if they knew ahead of time, but if they did, I am sure they got a great deal on it. Maybe the reason they bought it. Anyway, thanks for listening. The subscribe button and activate the notification bell for more things you don't want to know. Let us know in the comments what you think about these stories.